Welcome. My name is Alexis Flowers, and I'm the Director of Programs here at the Network of Enlightened Women, also known as NEW. Our mission at NEW is to educate, equip, and empower young women to be principled leaders for a free society. As part of our programming this year, we've been having some amazing conversations with newly elected or re-elected women who have been re-elected to Congress. And today I'm honored to be joined by Congresswoman Diana Harshbarger, who represents Tennessee's 1st Congressional District. The Congresswoman was born in Bloomingdale and was the first in her immediate family to graduate high school and college. She attended East Tennessee State University and graduated from Mercer University College of Pharmacy with a Doctor of Pharmacy degree. After graduation, she returned home to start a business and raise her family. She has been a licensed pharmacist and a successful business owner for more than 3 decades. She currently serves on the House Education and Labor and House Homeland Security committees. She is a wife, a mother, and a grandmother. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today, Congresswoman.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love to talk to young women no matter where we're at. So even on Zoom, we're good to go.
Yes, ma'am. Well, let's just jump in. After a career as a pharmacist, what inspired you to run for Congress?
Well, you look at what's going on in our country, and as a conservative woman, I mean, it had to take a lot to have me live a good life to come do what I'm doing. And I have a son, I have grandsons, I have a husband, I have a business, I have a farm. You have to look, and I think our nation's at a tipping point. And when I say that, I look at policies. Things are not the same as when I grew up and was a young professional. And, you read in my bio, I was the first one in my immediate family to graduate from high school and then go on to college. We have a culture that believes that, well, everything's free. It's not. I worked very hard to get where I am. And if I can influence policy in the ways that good common sense and a business background affords me, then I'm going to do that. And that's why I ran, to change the course of our country.
I love that. It's a very inspiring story. Since you've been in Congress, what are some of your policy priorities as you continue your work in Washington?
Well, like you said, I'm on Homeland Security, I'm on the Cybersecurity Critical Infrastructure Subcommittee, and also on Education and Labor, on the Higher Education Workforce Development, and the Health Subcommittees. Those are great committees. I'm also in the Doctor's Caucus as a pharmacist. For 36 years, you learn a whole lot about how a business should be run, and also how a country. There's not much difference in the two. And the priorities I have, a lot has to do with healthcare. And what I'm looking at doing in this next Congress is becoming a member of Energy and Commerce, which would utilize my background, my business background, my healthcare background, to push a lot of issues that concern me forward. I'm also on the China Task Force, and I want you young women to know that is probably the biggest threat to our national security is China. And the reason I wanted on Homeland is because of the issues with pharmaceutical, what we call APIs, and that's active pharmaceutical ingredients. We don't make the majority of our medications here in this country, and that is something that instantaneously pushes me toward ENC, but it also, we are vulnerable as a country, and that's going to be priority in the 118th Congress, is to make sure that we can onshore or nearshore these factories to make medicine right here. We have a border crisis. We have a problem with cyber critical infrastructure. When we go back to that is a priority for me when it comes to pharmaceutical manufacturing. When you live a real life and you've worked and you've been a successful business owner, and I was an outsider and a business owner, and that's why I think the people in my district absolutely chose me, is because you can utilize your background to push these policies forward. It's common sense. Mark Twain said it best, young women. Common sense is not common, okay? And I find up here a lot of times it's in short supply, and I have a lot of priorities going forward, and put me where I can best utilize and be utilized is what I'm saying.
I love that. Common sense is not common.
Well, it's the truth.
um, yes, I think in DC, but elsewhere as well.
Totally.
Um, I love that you were able to pull from your experience as a business owner and working in the private sector. What are some of those skill sets that you feel are coming in handy that you've honed over the years that you're able to utilize while in Washington?
Right. Well, run the business. We should run the country like a business. That's what President Trump did. That's why he was elected. You take that business knowledge. We as families, we as business owners, guess what? We have a budget to live by. The government seems to think, well, if we don't have enough money, we can print it. And where has that gotten us? And young people need to know now. I've offered amendments on education and labor. Nothing is free amendment because there's a lot of talk about giving away or wiping away, for example, student loan. Nothing is free. Somebody is paying for that. And it's probably people who have paid in to the tax structure for years. Look, the most rewarding thing is when you work hard and you achieve your goals. When people say you can't do it, just means you work a little harder to climb that hill. And as my husband always said, and my father-in-law, run a business, it's like you're riding a bicycle down the road. And there's always somebody that wants to put a stick through your spokes and knock you off when you're successful. But you can't let that happen. You just got to keep going. You look at the prize at the top of that hill, no matter who's throwing rocks, and you keep driving. And I wouldn't have been successful in business if I didn't apply those principles, and I wouldn't be successful in taking have a credibility about me up here if I didn't work hard. And so there's no substitute for experience. And we need more experienced people who've run businesses in government.
I love that. And I love the metaphor too. Kind of going back to something you had mentioned earlier, you talked about how it was a hard choice leaving the business that you created, your family, and taking that leap to run for office, but you did it because you felt called and you saw there were problems that you thought you were equipped to address.
Yes.
I know there's been studies about how conservative women, but women in general, need to be asked over and over to run for office sometimes. I think the average they've said is like 7 times some
Yeah.
women take to be able to finally make that step. What was that process like for you? And what do you think are some challenges that conservative women face? Like, why are there not more conservative women stepping into these roles and serving?
Well, it's because you take your vows seriously if you're married. And, as I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and those things, you have to prioritize everything in your life, more so than just running the business and being successful. You should look at the God-given order of things. It's God first, it's family second, it's everything else third, fourth, and fifth. And when you get your priorities right, as a conservative woman, oh my God, you are going to have to dodge the slings and arrows that people from the left are going to throw at you. Doesn't matter. If you remember the old movie Thelma and Louise, you got to look at it like this. I'm wiser, smarter, and I got better insurance. So go ahead, take your best shot. But the thing is, I look at the future. I had to run against 16 other people, never been in politics, and 80 years of political experience. I had to overcome every bit of that to become the first regularly elected woman to serve my first district. And it just makes you stronger. And that there's going to be a core of people that you trust and that you go to for advice. And it's just like the business world. Young women, you surround yourself with successful people who have done it the right way, and you go to them and you mentor them. And I taught Sunday school for 24 years, and it was middle school. And when I came up here, I said, Lord, if I can teach middle schoolers for 24 years, Congress is nothing, because I'm still doing it, if you know what I mean. It's kind of like that mentality. So, there's a discipline associated with that too. You have to do it in a kind, sincere way. I'm not a bomb thrower. I'm a fact finder. And, the truth will stand when the world's on fire. And if you give people truth, that's really what they're looking for. If they find that you're genuine, you're authentic, and you're a hard worker, they're going to gravitate to you. And that's what I've seen in the 117th Congress, that people who have been here for a while, they begin to come to me and say, well, what do you think about this policy? How are you going to vote on this? What do you think we should change? To me, that is an honor for them to take me as a credible member and just being in my first term in Congress. And that's why you want to reach for an A committee where you can really do some good, then that's what I'm working on this session. I've been working toward that since I got elected. And to let other people see that, yes, I am a credible voice and I will give you reason, but I do my due diligence and my homework.
I love that. I think if you turn on the news, it seems, and it's the exciting stuff that people like to see in the news and the media about all the fighting and contention.
Yeah.
But has there been any amount of working together and coming together around issues that's been surprising to you, or at least makes you hopeful about
Yes,
the process?
absolutely. Never discard. I work with anybody. It doesn't matter what's behind their name. The first bill that I ever passed, it was on Homeland, and it was by voice vote, and it was bipartisan, and there was no issue there. If we can't be bipartisan on Homeland, where are we going to be bipartisan at? And look, you have to put you don't compromise your morals or your ethics, okay? You work with people. A marriage is the same way. What do? You're not always going to get your way. I'm sorry, girls, you will not. And men, they're not always going to get their way, but there's where you talk it out, you compromise, and it's almost like a roundtable session that you sit and you this is the way government was designed. You debate, you put your ideas on the table, somebody else puts theirs. Don't be closed-minded about anything. And it's one of those deals where now that we're in the majority, we'll put our ideas forward, but like I said, you can compromise on different things, but never on your morals or your ethics. Don't do that. You are who you are because God designed you that way. And I'm not here by accident. I truly believe our steps are ordered, and I wouldn't be in Congress if that wasn't what his will was for me. And believe me, I tried to step away, but that calling was too great. And we're in the battle of our lives. And for you young people, get on the right path and don't stray. It's going to be easy. The world's talking to you. And I used to do this in Sunday school. I started asking one of my students questions and they could hear me and they'd answer. Then I got all the girls on both sides and I had them start talking to each other, and I was still in the same voice talking to that one student. She says, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Don't let the world talk to you to where you can't hear what your true calling is and what that plan is that's designed for you. Just be diligent, be focused, and you'll get where you need to be. You may take a few detours in the beginning, but you'll get there.
I love that. I've done a similar exercise, and it's hard. It's just, it's a good representation of the noise that, especially as our college students, there's, just from when I was in college 10 years ago, it's a huge difference. They're bombarded with so much constantly. And especially as looking to try to follow along with what's going on with our federal government, there's a lot of a lot of noise. What are some places that you think that you would recommend our students go to find out what's going on, what issues are important, whether those are resources, news outlets? Where do you go to find what's going on? And
there's a whole host of things. I have a great staff, and don't think that we can go through everything. If you have a bill to vote on and it's 2,800 pages and you've got 30 minutes, you think you're going to read through everything? We are diligent with our professional staff as well as my staff. We go through everything. I talk to other members. I can look at, sometimes the news media outlets will absolutely. My husband will call me and say, did you know about this? I said, how did you know? And he said, I heard it on the news. It's like, OMG, what am I, chopped liver? So we go in and we look at every source. You want to look at valuable sources. There's a lot of noise on the internet, a lot of these blogs, a lot of these social media platforms. Don't believe everything you read. And I could get into studies. As a pharmacist, I look at a lot of data. But there are studies that say your brain can be reprogrammed on how you think based on the news you take in. And it is absolutely true. I know that from a standpoint with opioid abuse and everything. But be diligent in getting to the truth. What did I tell you before? The truth will stand when the world's on fire. Come to my website. Call my office. We'll tell you where we stand and why we stand that way. And ask your member of Congress. And get valid, ask a Democrat, ask a Republican. Somewhere between the two, you're going to find exactly what you need to know. But I'm all about being a truth seeker, not a power seeker. You know, influence will come as long as you seek the truth. And I'm going to give you one piece of advice. You know, it's hard to run a business, raise a family, and then decide you're going to run for Congress. And you've got to get your priorities straight. You know, start getting involved in politics at the local level. You know, it matters who you put on school boards. It matters who you put in as your mayor, your sheriff, your judges, and your state representatives, and then your federal representatives. Do not just push a button because it's got a D or an R. If they've got a voting record, look at it. If they don't, you see if their morals and their values line up with yours. And if they're not doing what's right, let them know. Ask them why. You know, I do coffees with your congresswoman. I'll have 200 or 300 people show up. And I don't pre-plan anything. They can ask, I tell them up front, I said, you can ask me anything but my age and my weight. And so they do. And if I don't know something, I will be diligent in getting an answer. But, you know, be an open book, be transparent. You know, people are seeking the truth, especially young people. You know, my son's 37 and I saw him go through the process. I've seen all these young people. And you know what? The most precious thing to me is a lot of those students I had in middle school came back and said, Miss Diane, I cannot wait to vote for you. And now they have families, they have babies. And I'm like, what an honor for them to help me on the campaign side too. And a lot of them, I have them volunteer constantly to help me at my local offices or my DC offices. It matters how you treat people. And whether it was a competitor that I ran against, a lot of those young people came to work for me afterwards because you treat people the way you want to be treated. And they're just looking for truth. And let me give you this last piece of advice. I have colleagues sworn in with me that are younger than my son. And I looked at them when I found out and I said, OMG, golly, how old am I? I said, just call me what my son's buddies call me. And that's Mama D. And they do. I have colleagues who call me Mama D, and there's some lobbyists that I couldn't have birthed. I said, just call me CWD. You shouldn't let a title get in the way of a relationship because it's the same way in life. It's the same way in business, the same way in Congress. It's all about relationships, young ladies. And when you form those, you find out who you want to hang with and who you don't, and who are truth seekers and who are out there to garner power or brand themselves for their next position.
I love that. Just incredible advice, obviously for positions of leadership, but just in general, relationships. So much comes down to relationships and being authentic with people. Yeah. I want to be respectful of time, but on kind of wrapping things up, do you have any book or podcast recommendations, anything that you've been reading or consuming in that space that you'd recommend or share with the women in our audience?
Well, I've got so many open books. I can't give you just one. Lord Almighty, I've got 4 or 5 on my desk right now. And, you know, a lot of times I read things that I want to scour the earth for my grandsons who are 5 and 7. And, you know, just be diligent in what you do read. Heck, I read magazines more than I read books anymore because I don't have time. But podcasts are great. There's a number of podcasts. But most of them are political. I'm not going to taint you by giving you one or the other, but you can certainly email me and I'll give you some recommendations. But, you know, my job is to serve the people that elected me to serve them. And I am responsible to them and God Almighty, and everything else. Just shoot me an email and or give us our office a call and we'll be happy to give you advice on anything. Remember, I am a pharmacist. I'm functional medicine. I talk to everybody, no matter what age, and we can give you advice on anything, young women.
I love that. Well, a very encouraging note to end on. Where can our audience find you? You're on Twitter, Facebook, I'm sure, Instagram, all the social media.
Yes, ma'am. Everything. And it's harshbarger.house.gov if you want to get, you know, in touch with me on my official side. And we'll make sure you have all the information on our Twitter handles and Facebook and everything.
Yes, we'll make sure to link to everything. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. We really appreciate it.
Hey, no worries. You call me anytime. It's my pleasure.
Yes, and best of luck with the 118th session.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.